My name is Victoria Matthews, and at 32 years old, I thought I had finally earned my parents' respect. I was wrong. Dead wrong. The champagne flutes clinked around me as my sister Emma's wedding reception buzzed with laughter and music. The venue was gorgeous, a historic mansion with crystal chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. I had chosen my navy blue dress carefully, wanting to look elegant but not upstage the bride. After all, this was Emma's day, and despite everything, I loved my little sister. I was chatting with our cousin Sarah near the dessert table when my mother approached, her face wearing that familiar expression, the one that meant business. Dad flanked her right side, his jaw set in that stubborn way I knew all too well. "Victoria, we need to talk," Mom said, her voice cutting through the gentle classical music. "Can't it wait, Mom? It's Emma's reception." "No, it can't wait." She stepped closer, and I caught a whiff of her expensive perfume mixed with something sharper, desperation, maybe. "We need the keys to your penthouse." The words hit me like a physical blow. Around us, guests continued their conversations, oblivious to the bomb that had just been dropped. My hand instinctively moved to my clutch, where my keys rested safely. "What are you talking about?" Dad cleared his throat. "Your mother and I have been discussing this for months, Victoria. That penthouse is too big for one person. Emma and David need somewhere to start their new life together." I stared at them, waiting for the punchline that never came. "You want me to give away my home? The home I bought with my own money?" "Don't be dramatic," Mom hissed, glancing around nervously. "You can find a nice apartment somewhere. Emma needs that space more than you do." The conversation around us seemed to dim as blood rushed to my ears. This was my penthouse, the corner unit I'd scrimped and saved for through 6 years of 18-hour workdays as a corporate lawyer. The place where I'd finally felt safe, successful, proud. I said no. My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. That's when it happened. Mom's hand flew across my face so hard that my pearl earrings went flying. One landed in someone's champagne glass with a tiny splash. The sound of skin hitting skin seemed to echo through the entire room, and suddenly, 50 guests were staring at us in shocked silence. "You ungrateful, selfish brat!" Mom screamed, her face twisted with rage I'd never seen before. "After everything we've done for you." The room spun slightly as I touched my burning cheek. Emma stood frozen by the cake table, her beautiful wedding dress suddenly looking like a costume in a play I no longer wanted to be part of. I looked at the faces staring back at me, relatives, family friends, people who had watched me grow up. Some looked horrified, others seemed almost entertained by the drama. But not one person stepped forward to help. That's when everything clicked into place. Without another word, I walked toward the exit, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Behind me, I could hear Mom yelling something about me ruining Emma's day and Dad trying to calm her down. I pushed through the heavy doors and stepped into the cool evening air. My hands were still shaking as I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a contact I hadn't used in 3 years. "Marcus? It's Victoria. I need that favor you offered. But before I tell you what happened next, I need you to understand how we got here. Because what happened at that reception wasn't random, it was the culmination of 32 years of manipulation, favoritism, and lies that I was finally ready to see clearly. What would you do if your own parents demanded you give up everything you'd worked for? Let me know in the comments, because this story is just getting started. Growing up, the Matthews household had an unspoken rule: Emma was the sun, and the rest of us were planets orbiting around her light. From the moment my baby sister took her first breath, I became invisible. I was 7 when Emma was born, old enough to remember the exact moment my childhood ended. Mom held this tiny, perfect baby and looked at her like she created magic. Then she looked at me and said, "Victoria, you're going to be such a good big sister. You'll help Mommy take care of Emma, won't you?" What I didn't realize then was that help actually meant raise her yourself. By the time Emma was walking, I was the one chasing after her while Mom got her nails done. When Emma cried at night, it was me who stumbled out of bed to check on her, not our parents. I packed her lunches, braided her hair, helped her with homework, and attended every single one of her school plays while Mom and Dad worked late at their real estate business. "You're so responsible, Victoria," Mom would say whenever someone commented on how mature I seemed. "Emma's lucky to have you." But Emma's luck came at a cost, mine. When Emma wanted piano lessons at age 8, our parents immediately signed her up and bought a baby grand that dominated our living room. When I asked for art classes that same year, Dad ruffled my hair and said, "Maybe next year, kiddo. We need to focus on Emma's musical development." Next year never came. Emma got the lead in every school play. I was always backstage, helping with costumes or prompting lines. Emma got the beautiful bedroom with the bay window and built-in bookshelves. I got the smaller room next to the laundry, where the washing machine spin cycle kept me awake every Tuesday and Friday night. Don't get me wrong, I loved Emma. She was sweet and funny and genuinely talented. But loving someone and watching them get everything you ever wanted are two different things entirely. The pattern continued through high school. Emma was homecoming queen while I was student body treasurer, a role I'd earned through pure competence rather than popularity. Emma got a car for her 16th birthday. I got a part-time job to save money for one. "Victoria doesn't need a car like Emma does," Mom explained to my aunt during one family dinner. "She's more practical. She understands." But I didn't understand. I was furious, hurt, and exhausted from pretending everything was fine. College was supposed to be my escape. I'd earned a full scholarship to law school, something that should have made my parents proud. Instead, the dinner conversation the night before I left was entirely about Emma's senior year schedule and whether she'd get into the performing arts program she wanted. "That's wonderful about your scholarship, sweetheart," Dad had said absently, not looking up from Emma's college brochures. "Very practical." There was that word again. Practical. The consolation prize for the daughter who didn't matter. I threw myself into law school with the fury of someone who had something to prove. While my classmates partied and dated, I studied. While they complained about their workload, I took on internships and extra credit projects. I graduated summa cum laude and landed a position at one of the city's most prestigious firms. Finally, I thought. Finally, they'll see what I've accomplished. But when I called home to share the news about my job offer, Mom's first response was, "Oh, that's nice, honey. Did you hear Emma got the lead in her college production of Hamilton?" Even my successes were just background noise to Emma's symphony. The Penthouse was my declaration of independence. 28 floors above the city, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that stretched to the horizon. It was mine, bought with money I'd earned, decorated with furniture I'd chosen, filled with silence that belonged to me alone. For the first time in my life, I had something that was entirely mine. Or so I thought. The first hint of trouble came 6 months ago when Emma got engaged to David, a nice guy who worked as a teacher and couldn't afford much on his salary. During our monthly family dinner, a tradition I'd maintained out of stubbornness more than affection, Mom made an offhand comment about how cramped Emma and David's apartment was. "It's barely 800 square feet," Mom sighed dramatically. "Hardly suitable for starting a family." I should have seen it coming then. Should have recognized the setup. But I was still operating under the delusion that my parents had grown to respect me, that my success had finally earned me a place at the table instead of serving everyone else. 3 months later, Dad brought up my large living space during dinner. It's awfully big for just one person, don't you think, Victoria? 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. Seems like a waste. I use it as my home office, I'd replied. I need the space for work. Still, Mom had added, it would be perfect for a young couple just starting out. The breadcrumbs led exactly where you'd expect them to. 2 weeks before the wedding, Emma herself had brought it up. We were having coffee together, one of our rare sister-to-sister moments that I'd cherished. Victoria, can I ask you something? Emma had fidgeted with her engagement ring, not meeting my eyes. David and I have been talking about our living situation after the wedding. Emma, no. I'd set down my coffee cup harder than necessary. Don't ask me to give up my home. I'm not asking you to give it up, she protested. Maybe we could work something out. Like, I could help with the mortgage payments or... I don't have a mortgage, Emma. I bought it outright. The look that crossed her face then was one I'd never seen before, a mixture of shock, resentment, and something that looked almost like hatred. You bought it outright? Her voice was small. How much money do you make? That's when I realized Emma had no idea what my life actually looked like. To her, I was still just her practical big sister, the one who solved problems and faded into the background. The idea that I might be successful, wealthy, independent, it had never occurred to her. Enough, I'd said simply. She'd left shortly after, claiming David needed her for wedding planning. But I could see the wheels turning in her head. Now, standing outside the reception hall with a burning handprint on my cheek, I finally understood what had been happening. The months of hints, the casual comments about my empty penthouse, the way Mom and Dad had started treating me more like an obstacle than a daughter. They'd never planned to ask nicely. The public confrontation, the slap, the humiliation, it was all designed to make me so desperate to escape that I'd hand over my keys just to make it stop. But they'd underestimated me. Again. Marcus answered on the second ring. Victoria? I thought I'd never hear from you again. I need you to come to the Harborview Manor. Now. What's wrong? You sound. Just come. And Marcus? Bring the papers. I could hear the music and laughter continuing inside as I waited for Marcus to arrive. My own sister's wedding reception, carrying on as if nothing had happened. As if watching my mother slap me in front of 50 people was just another piece of entertainment. But I wasn't the same person who'd walked into that reception. That girl, the one who'd spent 32 years trying to earn love that was never coming, she was gone. Have you ever had a moment where everything suddenly made sense? Where years of confusion finally clicked into place? Because that's what happened to me standing outside that reception hall, and it was about to change everything. Marcus arrived in 23 minutes, pulling up in his silver BMW with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted his place in the world. Even at 35, he still looked like the college quarterback he'd once been, broad shoulders, easy smile, and that particular brand of charm that made people trust him instantly. We dated briefly in law school before realizing we worked better as friends than lovers. He'd gone into family law while I'd chosen corporate, but we'd maintained a professional relationship over the years. More importantly, Marcus had always seen through my family's dynamics in ways that made me uncomfortable. Victoria. He got out of the car and took one look at my face. Jesus. What happened? My mother happened. I touched my cheek gingerly. The sting had faded, but I could feel the swelling starting. Did you bring them? He nodded and pulled a manila folder from his briefcase. I still think you should reconsider this. Family relationships can be repaired, but some actions can't be undone. Some actions shouldn't be undone. I took the folder and felt its weight, heavy with the power to change everything. They've made their choice, Marcus. Now I'm making mine. Inside the reception hall, I could see the party continuing through the tall windows. Emma was dancing with David, her dress spinning around her like something from a fairy tale. Mom and Dad stood near the bar, probably fielding questions about where I'd disappeared to. You sure about this? Marcus asked. Because once I walk in there, I'm sure. We entered together, and I felt a small satisfaction in watching heads turn. Marcus had that effect on people. His presence commanded attention in rooms full of important people. I watched my parents' faces as they noticed him, saw the confusion flicker across Mom's features. I led Marcus directly to where my parents stood, still nursing their drinks and looking flustered. Mom, Dad, I'd like you to meet Marcus Chin. He's a family law attorney. Dad's face went pale. Mom's drink slipped in her hand, and she had to catch it before it fell. A lawyer? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Victoria, what are you doing? Protecting myself. I opened the folder and pulled out the first set of documents. Marcus, would you mind explaining what we have here? Marcus straightened his tie and adopted his professional voice, the one he used in courtrooms when he was about to destroy someone's case. Certainly. These are cease and desist letters regarding harassment and attempted coercion of my client's property. He handed one document each to my parents. Ms. Matthews has documented several instances over the past 6 months where you've pressured her to surrender ownership of her legally purchased condominium. That's ridiculous, Dad sputtered. We're her parents. We weren't harassing. The public confrontation this evening, including physical assault witnessed by approximately 50 people, suggests otherwise. Marcus's voice remained calm and professional. My client has several witnesses who can testify that you struck her when she refused to comply with your demands. I watched the color drain from Mom's face as the implications hit her. Around us, wedding guests were starting to notice the commotion again. Emma had stopped dancing and was moving toward us, her face filled with confusion and growing alarm. You're suing us? Mom's voice cracked. Your own parents? Not suing, I corrected. Warning. This is your notice to stop contacting me about my property. Any further attempts to coerce or manipulate me regarding my living situation will result in formal legal action. Emma reached us just as Marcus handed over the second set of documents. What's going on? Emma looked between all of us, her wedding makeup starting to smudge from tears she hadn't realized she was crying. Victoria, why is there a lawyer at my wedding? These documents, Marcus continued, ignoring Emma's question, establish a formal boundary regarding Ms. Matthews's property and personal decisions. Any violation of these terms will result in restraining orders and potential charges for harassment and assault. That's when Mom started screaming. How dare you? She lunged toward me, but Marcus stepped smoothly between us. How dare you bring lawyers to your sister's wedding? You selfish, vindictive. Mrs. Matthews, I strongly advise you to step back. Marcus's voice carried the authority of someone who dealt with volatile family situations before. Any further physical aggression toward my client will be documented and reported. Emma was openly crying now, her perfect wedding day dissolving into chaos. David appeared at her side, looking lost and overwhelmed. Other guests were openly staring, some pulling out phones to record the drama. "Victoria, please," Emma begged. "It's my wedding day. Can't you just..." "Just what, Emma? Just let them assault me? Just pretend this is normal? I don't understand what's happening." Emma's voice was breaking. "Why can't we all just get along? Why does everything have to be so dramatic?" That question hit me like a physical blow. After 32 years of watching me bend over backward to keep peace, after seeing me absorb every disappointment and slight, she still thought I was the one being dramatic. "Ask them," I said simply, gesturing toward our parents. "Ask them why they think they're entitled to my home. Ask them why Mom thought it was acceptable to hit me in front of your guests." But Emma didn't ask. Instead, she looked at me with something I'd never seen before, real anger. "You're ruining everything," she whispered. "This is supposed to be the happiest day of my life, and you're making it about you." The words hung in the air between us like a blade. After everything, after years of putting her needs before my own, she thought I was making this about me. "You're right," I said quietly. "I am making this about me. For the first time in my entire life, I'm making something about me." I turned to Marcus. "Are we done here?" He nodded and closed his briefcase. "The documents are served. My client's position is clear." As we walked toward the exit again, I could hear Mom still raging behind us, her voice carrying across the reception hall. "She'll regret this. Family is forever, Victoria. You can't lawyer your way out of being our daughter." But she was wrong about that too. At the exit, Marcus paused. "Where will you go tonight? You shouldn't be alone after this." "Home," I said simply. "To my penthouse. The one I earned, the one I paid for, the one that's mine." "Victoria." He looked like he wanted to say something else, something gentle and comforting. "Don't." I shook my head. "Don't tell me it will blow over. Don't tell me family is complicated. Don't tell me I should forgive them. I was going to say I'm proud of you." That stopped me cold. Proud. When was the last time someone had said they were proud of me? Not for solving someone else's problems or making someone else's life easier, but for standing up for myself? "Thank you," I managed. "Call me if you need anything." "And Victoria? Change your locks tonight." As I drove home through the city streets, I realized Marcus was right about more than just the locks. I needed to change everything: my phone number, my emergency contacts, my entire relationship with the people who'd never really seen me as anything more than Emma's supporting character. The penthouse felt different when I walked in that night. Bigger somehow. Quieter. For the first time since I'd bought it, it felt like it was truly, completely mine. But even as I changed the locks and blocked my parents' numbers, I couldn't shake the look on Emma's face. The betrayal in her eyes when she realized I wouldn't sacrifice myself for her happiness one more time. Part of me, the part that had spent 3 decades trying to earn love that was never freely given, wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. But the worst was yet to come. Because what happened at the reception was just the beginning. My family had spent 32 years learning exactly which buttons to push to make me comply, and they weren't going to give up without a fight. The real war was about to begin, and it would cost me everything I thought I knew about the people I'd called family my entire life. Have you ever stood up to your family, only to discover they were willing to go further than you ever imagined to get their way? Because that's exactly what I was about to learn. The harassment started 3 days after the wedding. My phone buzzed constantly with calls from numbers I didn't recognize, family, friends, distant relatives, people I hadn't spoken to in years, all calling to tell me how disappointed they were in my behavior at Emma's wedding. Each call followed the same script. How could I embarrass my family like that? How could I be so selfish? How could I choose money over love? By day 4, I'd changed my number twice. The emails were worse. Somehow, my work address had been shared with every person who'd ever attended a Matthews family barbecue. My professional inbox, the one reserved for million-dollar contracts and high-stakes negotiations, was flooded with messages about what a disgrace I was to the family name. I hired a private investigator on day 6. Something about the coordination of the harassment felt too organized, too systematic. My parents weren't tech-savvy enough to orchestrate a campaign like this alone. The truth came exactly 1 week after the wedding, delivered in a manila envelope slipped under my apartment door. Inside were printed screenshots of a private Facebook group called Justice for Emma. The group had 43 members, all family, friends, and relatives. But it wasn't just a place to gossip about the wedding drama. It was a carefully orchestrated plan to destroy my life. The posts made my blood run cold. Victoria thinks she's so high and mighty with her fancy lawyer job. Maybe it's time her firm knew what kind of person they really employ. I have a friend who works at her building. Says the HOA has been looking for reasons to get rid of problem tenants. My cousin works in corporate law. Says reputation is everything in that field. One scandal and you're done. But it was the final screenshot that made me sink onto my couch in shock. A post from my mother, dated the morning after the wedding. Phase 1 complete. The lawyer boyfriend was unexpected but not a problem. Victoria has always been prideful. She'll dig in harder now that she thinks she's won. That's when we moved to phase 2. Emma deserves that penthouse, and she's going to get it. Phase 2 turned out to be a systematic attempt to destroy my career. My boss called me into his office on a Tuesday morning, his face grave. Victoria, I need to ask you about some concerning calls we've received. What kind of calls? Several clients have contacted us with questions about your professionalism. Claims about volatile behavior, family disputes affecting your judgment. He leaned back in his chair. I've worked with you for 4 years. These claims don't match the person I know. But our clients are concerned. I felt the walls closing in. Who called? I can't reveal that information. But Victoria, whatever's happening in your personal life, you need to handle it. Soon. This firm can't afford to lose clients over personal drama. That evening, I sat in my penthouse looking out at the city lights and realized my family had declared war. Not the messy, emotional kind of family conflict I'd grown up with, but strategic, calculated warfare designed to strip away everything I'd built. They weren't trying to guilt me into giving up my home. They were trying to destroy me completely. That's when I called Marcus for the second time. They're systematically contacting my clients, I told him. This isn't just family drama anymore. This is intentional sabotage of my career. That changes things significantly, Marcus said. What you're describing could constitute criminal harassment, conspiracy, potentially even extortion if they're demanding your property in exchange for stopping. What can we do? We fight back. Hard. The next morning, Marcus filed restraining orders against my parents and delivered cease and desist letters to every member of the Facebook group. But more importantly, he'd been investigating something else. Victoria, I need to ask you about your parents' financial situation. What do you mean? Their real estate business. When did they start struggling? I thought about it. I'm not sure they are struggling. They seem to be doing well. That's what they want people to think. But I had a friend run a credit check. They're in serious financial trouble. The business is hemorrhaging money, they've got 3 mortgages on the family house, and they're behind on payments for Emma's wedding. The pieces started clicking together. How behind? $40,000. The venue, the flowers, the photographer, none of it's been paid for. The vendors are threatening to sue. I stared at him. They can't afford Emma's wedding. But you can. If they could somehow get their hands on your assets, they could pay off the wedding debt and have enough left over to save their business. I felt sick. This was never about Emma needing a place to live. I don't think Emma even knows. Your parents have been hiding their financial problems from everyone. But a penthouse like yours, sold or leveraged properly, would solve all their problems. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I called Emma. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice cold. What do you want, Victoria? I want to tell you the truth about something. I think you've told enough truths lately. Emma, did you know that Mom and Dad are in serious financial trouble? Silence. Did you know they can't pay for your wedding? That's not true. But her voice wavered. They owe the vendors. $40,000. Their business is failing. They have 3 mortgages on the house. How do you know that? Because I had it investigated. Emma, they never wanted my penthouse for you. They wanted it to save themselves from bankruptcy. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. Think about it, I continued gently. When did they start talking about you needing a bigger place? Right after they started having money problems. When did the pressure on me intensify? Right before your wedding, when the bills were due. But they said. Emma's voice was small now, confused. What did they say? They said you were being selfish. That you had so much and I had so little. That family should take care of family. And what did you think when you heard that? A long pause. I thought maybe they were right. You do have a lot, Victoria. More than I realized. And you deserved it more than I did? That's not what she stopped. I don't know. Maybe. You never seemed to care about things like that before. You were always so practical. There it was again. Practical. The word they'd used to dismiss every dream I'd ever had. Emma, can I ask you something? Do you actually want my penthouse? What do you mean? I mean, if money weren't an issue, if you could live anywhere in the city, would you choose my place? The 20th floor, no outdoor space, 40 minutes from David's school? Another pause. I never really thought about it that way. Because Mom and Dad never asked what you wanted. They told you what you needed. I could hear her crying now, soft sniffles that took me back to all the nights I'd comforted her as children. Victoria, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I thought they just wanted what was best for me. They do want what's best for you, Emma. But what they think is best for you and what you actually need are two different things. That night, Emma called our parents and told them she didn't want my penthouse. She told them she was happy in her small apartment with David, that she didn't need a big space to start her marriage. The response was immediate and ugly. Mom screamed at Emma for being brainwashed by me. Dad threatened to cut her off financially, ironic, considering they didn't have any money to cut her off from. Emma forwarded me the voicemails. In one, Mom actually said, "If you don't get that penthouse from your sister, you're not really our daughter anymore." The same woman who'd slapped me for refusing to give up my home was now disowning Emma for not wanting it. 2 weeks later, Emma and David moved out of state. David had been offered a teaching position in Oregon, and they decided a fresh start was exactly what they needed. Before she left, Emma came to see me. "I'm sorry," she said, standing in my living room for the first time ever. "I'm sorry for not seeing what was happening. I'm sorry for making you feel like you didn't matter." "You were their victim too," I told her. "Just in a different way. Will you visit us? Once we're settled?" "I'd like that." As for my parents, the restraining orders held. The harassment stopped. Their real estate business went under 3 months later, and they had to sell the family house to pay their debts. Last I heard, they were renting a small apartment across town and still telling anyone who would listen that their daughters had abandoned them. But here's the thing about standing up to people who've spent your entire life making you feel small: once you do it, you realize you were never actually small at all. You were just surrounded by people who needed you to believe you were. I'm still in my penthouse. Still working at the same firm, where my reputation recovered once the harassment stopped. I've started dating again, nothing serious yet, but I'm learning what it feels like to be valued for who I am rather than what I can provide. Emma and I talk every week now. Real conversations, not the performative sister relationship our parents had orchestrated. She's happier than I've ever seen her, teaching art to kindergartners and living in a cozy house with a garden. And me? I'm learning something I never thought possible: how to put myself first without feeling guilty about it. The penthouse still has 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. But now they're filled with things I chose: a home office, an art studio where I'm learning to paint, a library with books I actually want to read. The space isn't too big for one person after all. It's exactly the right size for a person who's finally learned her own worth. My parents taught me an important lesson, just not the one they intended. They taught me that some people will only value you for what you can give them, and that blood relation doesn't exempt anyone from that rule. But they also taught me that I'm strong enough to walk away from people who don't see my value, even when those people raised me. Especially when those people raised me. Have you ever experienced betrayal like this from the people you trusted most? Have you had to choose between keeping peace and protecting yourself? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes sharing our experiences helps us realize we're not alone in the difficult choices we have to make. Remember, you are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm, even if those others are family. Your worth isn't determined by what you can provide for other people. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for toxic family members is to stop enabling their behavior by removing yourself from the equation. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there who might be facing their own impossible family situation. You deserve better, and it's okay to demand it.